Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to take a look at a couple more uses of the Forms API, specifically how to submit and delete responses to forms using Power Automate. This builds on the first video on this channel in which we use the Forms API in order to retrieve information about a form's questions and the details of a particular response in order to amalgamate those in order to automatically score a Microsoft Forms quiz. So I'd recommend watching that video if you haven't already, for some of the background that we'll build on in this video. So in preparation for today's video, I've created a very simple form of one question, which is just a text question. And when submitted, this form will trigger a Power Automate flow, which will get the response details and put that text question answer into a SharePoint list, which is also called simple form. So if I put my flow into test mode or select manual, which will then wait for a response to a form to be filled in, and I'll send off response, and then that should trigger the flow. And with any luck, we'll post a new item in the SharePoint list. So if I just refresh this, there we go, hello has appeared in the test list. So in order to emulate that behavior, we're going to open up the developer tools again with F12, and we'll submit another form and watch what happens. So there you can see something's happened already, so I'll stop recording there, and we'll go and take a look at this responses object. So we can see here that a call was made to the Forms API. This is the format we're familiar with, ending in responses from the last video. This time it's a post request, so let's have a look what the payload was. This is the information that was sent off to forms in order to send the response in. And we can see here that there's a few bits of information sent, the start date, the submit date, and a collection of answers, and then a property called email receipt consent, which has been set to false. So let's say we wanted to submit this same form automatically every morning. We might want to do that in order to test out the fact that our flow is still running. It might be a business critical flow, and we need to make sure that it's still available for people to submit that form and for something to happen every day. So to start that off, I've built the trigger for a new flow, which is a recurrence trigger. So this flow will run on a schedule, and I've just set that up to be every day at 6 AM. So when I turn up for work, I should expect to see a new entry in this SharePoint list every morning. But then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow from the flow we built in the first video on this channel, which initially got the base URL of the Forms API for this particular form. So I'm going to copy this action. I'm going to go into my new flow and paste that in. Let's change the name back to get form. Now this particular flow was a child flow that retrieved the form ID from the trigger. However, in this case, we're going to get that manually because it will be the same form every time. So the form ID is this ID up here in the designer. So I'll just copy that. We can also get that from the response page. So I'll paste that in. That's hard coded for this particular form. And that will get us the rest of that base URL that we need. And there's the compose action. So that compose action took the response of this call to the Forms API, and it formatted it in such a way that, oops, that's the action there. If I go to my clipboard history, I'll just do one. And that was in single quotes before, so let's put those back in. So now this is the base URL for this particular form for the rest of the calls to the Forms API. And then lastly, we'll just use this get response object because this used the responses endpoint under the Forms API base URL. So I paste that in. Again, I'll get rid of the copy. And this time we don't need this end part because we're not filtering down for an existing form, we're submitting a new one. And as we could see from the call to the Forms API in that headers tab, it just ended at /responses. So we'll get rid of everything after that. And then we'll save. I've actually just spotted that this equals is in the wrong place. That should be before the ID there. So ID equals 60, etc. So let's save that. Right, and let's test this flow and see what happens. So at the moment, it should just be getting all the responses to the forms, of which there's 2. There's my original hello, and then hello 2. So we're going to try and replicate this second one. And the change we need to make in order to do that is change the method of this action. So at the moment it's a get, which means get the existing responses, whereas what we actually want to do is to post a new response off to the Forms data store. So let's add a body to do that. And if we go back to our example here, we can copy hopefully this whole payload and paste it in to the body of the request. So there we've got an example body, and if we save and test this now, let's see what happens. So it's not happy with that, and that's because it's saying the response is not in a JSON format. So I've been looking into why that didn't work, and I've tracked it down to the form base URL that we're using from the other flow, having this light part of the URL, whereas this was actually submitted when we look at the developer tools to the Forms API that didn't include that word light. So I'm going to try removing one of those slashes in the word light, and I'll just save and test that now. And this time it was much happier. So if I go back to the form design screen and look at my responses and click view results, we can see that there's more versions of Hello 2 in there, which have been submitted automatically via Power Automate. So the next thing we're going to do is open the developer tools on these results pages to see what happens when we delete a particular response. So we can see that responses 4 has been sent off here. I'll just stop that recording. Don't double click it. So it's the same format, so no light there again, /responses, but then there's the number 4 in brackets. So that number 4 related to the response number, which we get in our simple form flow from this when a new response is submitted trigger. So we can see that in the latest run now, the response ID was 6. So if we pass that 6 back to the delete API endpoint, then we should be able to delete that form once we've successfully saved its information over to SharePoint. And this will keep the Forms database nice and clear, and we can manage the retention of the data just in SharePoint. So I'm going to copy my get form action and paste it after the SharePoint create item. Just get rid of the copy, and then I'm going to take the form base URL, paste that as well. Double check that hasn't got the /light for this flow, and then we'll copy this get response action, which we should probably rename to post response while we're here, and we're going to paste that in here, and we'll call it delete response. So we don't need a body because we're not sending off any information this time, but we do need to change the method to delete, and we need to add that open and close brackets here, and in the middle we want the form ID, which we got from the trigger when a new response is submitted, response ID. So let's save and test that. So let's click test. That will wait for a form. So we'll go back to the form. We can close the developer tools down. Hello 3. Form's gone off. So the form's been received. It's been posted to SharePoint. So if we go into SharePoint and refresh, all the test runs will come through here. So here's hello 3. And then if we go back to the flow run, we'll see that the delete action was successful. So if I go into my form responses and click view results, you'll find that there is no number 7 with hello 3, and that's because it's already been deleted. So there you have it, 2 more actions from the Forms API, one to post a response to a form, one to delete a response. So you could use this as I have here in this example, where every morning a test form is sent in just to prove that this flow that creates an item in SharePoint is working, because that could be a business critical flow. And then that form, and every other form for that matter, is deleted once we're confident that the item and its information has been saved over the SharePoint. We don't need to keep a second copy of it in the Forms API, so that can be deleted. So all that leaves is for me to say thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please drop a like and consider subscribing to my channel. And I hope to see you again soon. See you later, Automator.